before I start. Is it recording? Yes. Okay. For the assignments, I've sent you an email. I hope it's clear. You have to make one more paper like you did for the movement image, but on the time image. So you pick an author, you do his problem, his type, and then the integration. Okay. Like what you did, I hope a little bit better, because now you know what you have to do. So this is what you have to do for the first paper. So paper 2 for your second grade. And you can send me before that, I advise you to do that, a short email just telling me I want to work on this author or movie maker or whatever. And is he part of the time image? I will tell you yes or no. Okay, so don't do the mistake of working on someone which is a classical or a modern kind of art. So I hope this is clear. Now the third paper, which is not when you redo your paper, the third paper is you do the same with yourself. You tell me my problem is, I don't know, confessionalism in Lebanon. I want to solve my problem in general this way. My image type will be this image type because, you know, and then my integration method will be this one. Is it clear for everyone?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And if you have
Yeah.
questions, you can ask me. You can send me an email or WhatsApp or we can meet somewhere on Skype or whatever, and I can re-explain to you what you need to do. Okay. Use these tools if you don't want to get a bad surprise on when it comes to your grades. Please use these tools at least for you to be sure that what you're doing in terms of papers is the right thing to do. This way you don't end up failing the course just because you didn't know what you had to do. Knowing that I'm here practically all the time, you can call me whenever, and I can re-explain at least the paper instructions. If you don't want to, if you're not much into the content or you don't want to dive into what we're doing, you can at least secure your grades. Okay, so that's for the logistical things. If you have other questions on logistical stuff, you send me an email, you call me, and I'm here to clarify that. So today is the last session, and I'm going to explain to you the integration of the time image. Okay, so as you know, I hope the structure of this course is clear. First, we do image typologies, the image types, like we did in the classical image. For example, you have perception image that describes, you have affection image that expresses, you have the action image to change, to act, you have the, you know, mental image, etc. And all of these are classical images. And then we did the integration, meaning the general principle that allows you to put an image with another image. This is integration. Integration's most general definition is how am I going to justify but also make sense of putting two images together. This is why we call it integration. It's synthetic. You bring together two images. And you have seen in the classical image, I hope by now it's clear, that what allows you to bring together images is the concept, which is understanding, which is to get the idea. It's very simple what I'm saying. If you are a modernist, if you want to put the image of guns with hands raised in the air with a red flag, what can put these together? Well, it is the conception of the revolution in Russia. So I repeat, if you understand what is the revolution in Russia, let's say the October Revolution or the Russian October Revolution, and you are Eisenstein, you understood that actually, well, You have first to show the insurrection, little conflicts between workers and their bosses, and then organization of the workers, and then, you know, the revolution. And in the revolution, you have to show that the crucial moment is when they took the arms, and this is why they raise their hands and they start waving the red flag. Okay, so I hope this is clear. What allows me to put together all these images is the way I understand, and the way I understand means the way I grasp the idea of the revolution. If you take someone like Paul Klee, he says, well, you know, if you want to paint reality and not anymore just how things appear, you have to first understand the mechanisms of nature. And when you understand the mechanisms of nature, the different dynamisms, as Paul Klee used to call them, you're able then to create a language, which is a pictorial language that I've showed you here, with squares and triangles and colors, and each triangle or square or color has its own connotation, its own value, its own meaning. And when you put them together, when you do the composition of all these literally pictorial signs, you will end up creating an equivalent of what you have understood when it comes to the natural object you are dealing with. So I hope by now this is clear. We did this already in the integration of the classical image, meaning you integrate under the concept a set of images. The concept revolution allows you to put these images together in this order because this is the rational decoupage, the rational sequencing of that, and this is how you build your representation. The second one we have seen, like with Paul Klee, yeah, you can have natural phenomena, you understand it, you create a pictorial language, and this is how you're able to integrate, to put together triangles and lines and zigzags and blues and red. Why are you putting these together like that? Because now each one of these relate to the way you understood the natural phenomenon. Really, this is what you have to show in integration. You have to tell me that you see his problem here. He's trying to convey this objectivity via this way of understanding, and for him, the plastic solution, this is the important point, the plastic solution is, for Paul Klee, pictorial language. He has a whole kind of research on what a pictorial language is. For Eisenstein, it would be the, let's say, pathetic montage, metaphors, and the like, which is what he uses in order to make the integration. I hope this is clear. So you see, this is, if you want, in short, the classic. And if you want to really grasp your classical ontology in short, if you want to have a kind of, you know, portable ontology, a little portable Plato, well, it's not complicated. Our intellect grasps the idea. In accordance to what our intellect grasps, we're able to dominate and organize the sensible world in accordance to what we have grasped. It's not that complicated. I understand what the ideal man is and should be. He should be wise, he should be courageous, he should be smart, he should be, I don't know, tempered, moderated, he should be, etc. These are the qualities of the ideal man. And then me as a man, I try to be like the ideal man. This is like typically Platonic and typically part of this classical world where you have this kind of ideality which is superior, but in the same time organizing and structuring the sensitive world. So if you look at the classical kind of organization, it's a vertical structure, meaning you have the idea which is on top that you can only access with your intellect, if you can. Sometimes Plato says it's even very difficult to get these realities because it's very difficult to even get them with the intellect. Well, let's suppose you get it with your intellect, then you subject your emotional life, your sensitive life to this kind of idea. Now, with Nietzsche, things change. Nietzsche, if you want, all of it, with all the types that you have seen, be it the circus of time or the eternal return, which are the two, the two big groups. So Nietzsche, with his circus of time, the circus of time, the whole of time, and the eternal return, all of this disrupts and disturbs this kind of rational ideal structure. Now, Nietzsche, if you want to grasp him in short, and again, if you want to have your portable ontology now of Nietzsche with you, we said the portable ontology of Plato is you have the idea and dominates the sensitive. As the sensitive conforms to the idea, the sensitive is always less than the idea. You cannot, with your eyes, see the 6 faces of the cube, but you know that the cube has 6 faces. I hope by now this is becoming like, you acquired that, I hope, at least. Meaning, you know that the idea is what you grasp with your intellect, but you don't really see it. You can only approximate what you understand. And given that it's an approximation, we call it a copy, portable ontology of Plato. Now, with Nietzsche, you see, the line is not anymore between idea and the sensitive world, but it is like that. It is between a being and another being. So it's between two beings which are thinking and sensitive at the same time, and not anymore between thought and sensation divided like that, like in a kind of hierarchy. You have a split which is between two beings. I explain how this goes. I hope I now remembered, as you said last time, that really Nietzsche is against history, against the organization of the world under the idea, which has as an equivalent the sensory motor organization, where you know what to do and how to do it, and you are muscular and strong, and you drive a big car and you punch the bad guy and all of these things. All of that is the classical world. And Nietzsche is against practically all of this organization, and his ontology, meaning his conception of the real, is not anymore the idea about the will to power. Now, what is the will to power? You have will and power. Willing is when you want, and power is when you do, it. It's really not that complicated. For example, you are in love. This is you want the beloved, and what do? Well, you send a text message. It's as simple as that. You are in love, you make love, and then what do you want? You want to be in love again. This is really the Nietzschean problem. You love Beethoven, you would like to make music like Beethoven, you start doing piano or playing or learning piano, and then you play as well or as good as Beethoven. And then what you would like to have is the desire that you had before learning your Beethoven. You want to be an artist like, I don't know, like Godard, great, you learn cinema, you do cinema, you end up doing incredible movies. And then here the danger is what? The danger is that you become a bit bored with cinema, and hence what you would like then to want is wanting again. So I repeat, it's really very, very simple. Want, meaning will, is like when you are in love. This is love. Then you are with the beloved, and then you would like to love again. And this is why the will to power is a never-ending vortex. You see, what Nietzsche is saying, if you really think about things as they are in the world and not as they are, you know, fictionalized by people like Plato, Jesus, the prophet, all of these names which prefer the other world to this world. If you are in this world, what is really the being of beings? What makes them these beings? Me, you, and the cat, and the bird, and a tree, and the sun, and even chemicals. All beings. All beings. What is their core? Their core, Nietzsche says, is will to power, meaning all beings, the moon, the sun, the earth, a river, the sea, the ocean, the whale, all beings. Well, when you think about them, they are a desire, willing, and then they do. And then when they do, they desire again, and they do again, and so on and so forth. So the will to power is this never-ending going beyond yourself into your action and going beyond the action into desiring a new action again and again, going from this new desire into a new action and so on and so forth. This is the reality of beings, and not, as Plato used to think, that we are copies of something ideal, like the ideal man, and I'm more or less, not that of an ideal man, but a rather good copy, more or less. So here you can object, like, yeah, but Plato, isn't he also willing and creating these ideas? Nietzsche will say, yes, of course, because I told you that everyone, including Jesus and the prophet, and Katz and Picasso and everyone, including those who are part of the ideal system, they are also will to power. Yeah? No? Okay. So what I'm saying is very simple. Does Plato has a will to power? Nietzsche says, yes, of course he has a will to power because he's a being among beings and all beings have a will to power. But the will to power of Plato, you see, it's a bit sick. Now, why is it sick? Because Plato would like to depreciate life. You see how Nietzsche works. It's a very interesting take. Nietzsche says, well, you know what, instead of debating about the ideal man, does he exist, doesn't he exist, does he exist in another world or only in our minds, or is he part of us, or we don't know what, or is he an abstraction when you compared many men, etc., etc. These things like the ideal man or the world of the ideas that Plato used to talk about, as if it's there. Well, Nietzsche says there's no need, to prove if it exists or not, because it's a useless enterprise. What would be more interesting is to know what kind of will creates such things. Let's take paradise created by Abraham, Jesus, let's say Abraham, St. Paul, and the Prophet Muhammad. So what is the thing called paradise and hell and all that story? Nietzsche says, you know what, there's no need to know if there's a God or no God, and you waste your time. All what you need to know is what kind of will desires something which is beyond life. This is all what you need to know. And it's clear that when you desire something like paradise, which is not of this world, something like the world of the ideas, which is not of this world, and you think that the world of the ideas or paradise are better than this world, and actually this world is only a kind of test or a copy or something which is not as good as the original, which is the paradise world of idea, you are depreciating this world. And you are looking at the beings of this world from this kind of upper position where you look down at them and you say, oh, all these miserable creatures, miserable humans, and they don't even know that they are just being tested here, and most of them are going to hell because they're all sinners. And if they're not sinners, where they are just bad copies, you know, and they're really not realizing the ideal, so on and so forth. So Nietzsche is saying, when you look at things as will to power, any being is not a copy of an idea. It's just this kind of never-ending emotions, desires that would like to realize themselves, and when they realize themselves, they have more desires and so on and so forth. This is the real. It's not some kind of ideality. And there's a lot of cruelty and harshness and appetites in this reality. You know, lions, they eat the sheep, and eagles, they snatch the baby lambs and they eat them because they taste good. And, you know, this is the world. The world is this kind of world of devouring desires, which actualize themselves always, not accidentally. When you have a power, you always unleash this power. And this is the reality of the world. And of course, people like the prophet, Jesus, and Plato, they also are will to power, but the problem is that their will to power is a little bit sick, because they've created things to depreciate life. You see, a will to power can also be depreciative. The will to power is only this kind of tendency to always do it to the extreme. And what Nietzsche is saying is that even when you have a sick, meaning a nihilist will to power like Plato, etc., you want to do it to the extreme. So when you have when your desire, when what you want is to depreciate the world, well, to do it to the extreme, if you are really good, you will be like St. Paul or like Plato, because they were able to bring about a depreciation which is really like incredible, like a very powerful depreciation of the world was introduced by Plato, followed by Jesus and the prophet, to take just the three big names. And, you know, this is like very good work, because they were able to bring this desire to a peak, to a high intensity. But what I'd like you here to notice, is this. You see, when you say, you know what, Plato, at the end of the day, his desire is to depreciate the world. What did he create to depreciate the world? The world of the ideas. Let's do it with Jesus. He also wants to depreciate the world, but he created the doctrine, as Nietzsche thinks, of dying in peace. You know, just don't oppose anyone. If they slap you, it's okay. If you're dying, it's also okay. If they crucify you, it's also okay. You know, just die in peace, because you know what, this world is not worth it. And for Nietzsche, again, not for the official doctrine, you know, Jesus, he's like that. He's just a kind of hippie who wants to die in peace. The prophet, he's more like St. Paul, no, a bit. If you take St. Paul, we are sinners. He created this notion of sin, and this is how he was able to depreciate the world. The prophet created, you know, the whole structure of paradise, hell, but without sin, which is also another way to depreciate the world. So on and so forth. I will not do you here now a course on Nietzsche, but you need to just understand this very, very basic idea, which is that when you see things as will to power, you have a tendency to go to the extreme. And then to do that, you create things like you create ideas, works of art, you create, I don't know, movies, whatever you create. And this is going to intensify your will, and vice versa. You see, it's a torque. So I give you an example from the arts, from literature. This way I hope you will understand this very basic idea. If you take D.H. Lawrence and the way he deals with turtles, tortues. You know, D.H. Lawrence, he doesn't think like Plato, like what is a turtle, or like Aristotle. A turtle is this animal, blah, blah, and this is how it works, and you have its idea, and you know what is a turtle. For D.H. Lawrence, a turtle is a will to power. It's a very slow It's a very slow way of living. So you see, it's a will to power which is taken to the slowliness. This is the quality of it. So this being which is very slow, the turtle, D.H. Lawrence is going to create a poem which is called The Turtle, where writing is very slow. So when you read the poem, it's really not moving. He keeps repeating the same sentence, and the poem which is describing the turtle is like the turtle, but not a turtle, and it's almost not moving. So as you can see here, the poem or writing becomes turtlesque, and the turtle becomes language and poetry. And this is when the one is reinforcing the other. It's not anymore that I have a concept of the turtle and then the turtle is not a perfect turtle and I judge the turtle. Now I have a poem that is going to intensify the being turtlesque. So this is an example from D.H. Lawrence, where you can see how thought is not anymore judging its sensitive object, like the perfect turtle should be like that, but this turtle, I don't know, it's a bit too small, well, it should have been a bit bigger, or I don't know what. It's not anymore judging its sensitive object, it is actually intensifying the sensitive object, right? So you see here, you put here a work of thought should trigger with its object a vortex. I give you another example for you to grasp that, because actually this is the integration. The integration is that you have to do a work of art that instead of judging or representing the object like Paul Klee used to do, like a man sleeping, I'm going to represent it. So of course the man sleeping, the way I understand it, is bigger, higher than the representation. Doesn't make you sleep better. It just makes you understand and see visually how the man is sleeping. What Nietzsche is saying, or in these new images, what we are seeing, is that when you do a work of art, it has to connect to its object and make it more intense, and then this intensification will make the work of art even more intense, and you have this vortex, this kind of spinning between the work of art and what it is the work of art of. So I give you here an example from ethics, because Nietzsche is known for his genealogy of morals, and he has this kind of work of thought. He created something called The Eternal Return, the ethical version. And in this version, he says the following. He says, imagine there's a demon that comes to you in your loneliest night. He sneaks into your room and he tells you that your life as you have lived it and as you will live it, as you have lived it so far in all its details, you are going to live it again and again and again. Will you embrace this demon and tell him you are so wonderful, I love you, or will you throw yourself on the carpet and start biting the carpet because you are in a total despair? Nietzsche says, if you are a life-affirming kind of person, you will hug the demon. Why you will hug the demon? Because Nietzsche says you would have lived at least once something very, very exhilarating, that you would be willing to live all your life again with all its boredoms and pains in order to live that moment again and again and again. So what is Nietzsche really saying in this little story? What he's saying is that if you want to know how to act, this is a problem. How can I act? Should I go to the dinner with my parents or should I go to the beach? How can I decide? Should I study visual arts or should I don't know, study architecture? Should I marry this person or should I marry that person or should I not marry at all? So here you have a problem. You have a problem, what should I do? It's a question, problem. And then how can you decide? Nietzsche says, I have the little trick for you to decide. You decide by doing the test where if you are willing to repeat that action, however meek, small, however irrational it is, or rational, it doesn't matter, or rational and grand and courageous, it doesn't matter for Nietzsche. However, whatever you want to do, let's suppose you want to smoke and drink and just sit there watching movies. If you feel like doing that at that moment forever, meaning repeatedly, over and over and over, this means that this is the action to do. This is a good action to do, even if it's small and meek, because at least you know that you wanted really, really bad. Okay. So as you can see is that now you have two things. You have the eternal return moral version, like will your action to return eternally if you want to know if you have to do them, and you have the action. And if you think that, how is your will now? Your will is intensified. Really try it on yourself next time you want to decide something. Do I want to take the course? Do I want to go here? Do I want to do this art or that thing or whatever? Try to think, am I willing to do this over and over and over again? If the answer is yes, it means that your will is purified, it's reinforced, and this is what you will have to do. So this is another example of this kind of equality between thought and the object of thought, or thought and sensation. Thought must trigger sensation, and sensation must trigger thought. Let's take Kant. Kant tells you, and of course Nietzsche is mocking Kant when he did this little test, which is the eternal return of the will. Nietzsche tells Kant, or Nietzsche is mocking Kant because Kant says the following. He says, act as if your action can hold as a universal law. You see, it's very different from act as if your action is will to return. Because if you will the return of lying, of, I don't know, taking drugs, gluttony, very, very low sexual practices, awful, theft, murder, whatever you are willing. Nietzsche tells you, if you really are willing that and you are willing it to return, well, you can do it. Kant is saying, well, no, whatever you do, it has to hold universally, meaning everyone should be able to do it with you, or else you shouldn't do it. So if you take lying, you shouldn't lie, of course. Why? Because you will not will everyone to lie, because they will be lying at you. So you too, you shouldn't lie. And you see, if you read Kant's morals, and Kant is a Platonician, he's a Platonic kind of philosopher, a new version of Plato. Kant says, you see, you have to really abide by the universal, the ideal, what used to be the ideal for Plato. Hence, you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't kill, you shouldn't be homosexual, you shouldn't betray your wife, you shouldn't have sex before marriage, you shouldn't be a glutton, you shouldn't watch stupid movies, and you have all the should and shouldn'ts of Kant, where you see that, oh my God, if I want to be a real Kantian, it's very, very demanding because, I have to be the universal man. I hope now you're getting this difference. Kant tells you have this law, which is above your head, be universal, and if you can't be universal, it's your problem, and you have to make an effort to be universal. Nietzsche is telling you, well, no, when you want to do something, just want it fully, and this makes it, this transfigures it. So now I hope you're getting this contrast between, on one hand, the thought that judges the sensitive and the world. We are in the sensitive world. And you have another way of thinking that is going to intensify the world and the sensitive. So thought is not anymore opposed to the sensitive, nor the sensitive to thought. Actually, they work together as the two sides of the same vortex, while in Plato you have a vertical judgment where the intellect judges, dominates, and organizes the sensitive. Now, So I hope this is clear. So to wrap it, just for Nietzsche before moving into the recapitulation of the time images. So Nietzsche has this system where I repeat, the real is will to power. If you take a little cockroach crawling there, why is it crawling there? Because it wants something. And what does it want? Maybe it wants food, or it wants to reproduce, or it wants a warm place to, to sit there. And so it wants something. Why are you here? Because you want something. You want to validate your grades, to graduate, to become artist, or something like that. So if I'm here also, I want something. I want to teach. I want to get my salary or whatever. So whatever you think about, it's because they want something. And then they do it, and then they want it again. Now, given that this is the core of reality, Nietzsche says nothing can rest. Everything is in a constant movement and a constant change. Because let's suppose you want to become an artist. When you become an artist, well, you would like to become an even better artist, or you want to start doing movies, or you want to, retire, or you want to go to Tahiti. What do I know? So you can't really stop. As long as you're alive, you are in a constant wanting and doing. And this is what Nietzsche calls the eternal return, the ontological one now, not the moral little story. The eternal return is what? Is the fact that everything is changing, and the being of changing is returning, meaning what is changed? Well, change is simply the manifestation of the will to power, and of course there will always be change. See, it's very different from Plato, who used to think that change is simply a kind of distortion of the eternal, a mixture of the eternal, an impurity of the eternal. What Nietzsche is saying is no, change is the real itself, and changing and never-ending change, change will always be there. It will never stop, because the core of things is will to power, is this going beyond yourself all the time. So now you have will to power and eternal return. The manifestation of the will to power is the eternal return of change. This is his basic ontology. And we are all changing and willing and acting because we are real and we are part of this world, and we cannot do anything about it. We can't suspend our will. And actually, if you want to suspend your will, like the Buddha, it means that you are sick. For Nietzsche, it's very simple. All of these yogis, Buddhists, peaceful kind of, meditative souls, they are sick for Nietzsche, because all what they want is simply to go against the principle of life itself. And a life that wants to go against life is a sick life. Because life itself is change and never-ending projecting and never-ending realized. Okay. So now you have will to power and eternal return, which is really like what makes us all. Now into that, as I was speaking, you notice that I was evaluating. I used to say, I said that Plato is sick, or that St. Paul is even more sick than Plato. And the prophet is more sick than Plato, but less sick than St. Paul. So on and so forth. So you have degrees of evaluation. You see, why is Plato sick, but not as sick as St. Paul? Because Plato, at least, he still thinks that the upper world, the world of the ideas, and the lower world, the world of change, they form a nice machine, a nice optical kind of machine, where you have the circulation of the souls, and where the ideas, they govern change, and so on and so forth. So it's like a nice cosmic machine. You see, with St. Paul, the depreciation went even further. If we are in this world, it's not just because matter tweaks the machine, and hence it cannot really realize the ideas as they are. This is Plato. If we are here, it's because we have sinned. As you know, Adam has sinned, and he sinned against God. And we are here because we are getting punished, and hence we are here because we are morally faulty. And you can feel here it's more heavy. It's more heavy. You are not here just because you're a copy of the ideal, because you have a body matter which makes you less ideal than the ideal, so on and so forth, like in a kind of Greek vision. With St. Paul and the Christian vision of the church, not Jesus, you have this kind of heaviness of sin. Fine. So the depreciation is even more. Now, what do you do when you do this kind of evaluation? What you're doing is what you call, you are determining the will to power. You're just saying, is his will life affirming or life negating, which are the two polarities? So if you are life affirming, you have a noble will to power, meaning you are really interested in the world. And if you are life negating, you don't have a noble will to power, you are sick, you are tired, you are bored. And this is why you don't love this world anymore. You just want to get out of it via meditation or religion or mystical experiments or whatever, or by believing in the eternity of the ideas and that everything you see around you is just mere accidents and not interesting things. So this is when you are a depreciative will to power, and you are an appreciative will to power when you say that life is really like fascinating. You know, you look at animals, you look at colors, you look at whatever you look at, it's always new, it's always interesting. Now, why is it always new? Because for Nietzsche, obviously, if the world is ever changing, it is ever new. And as you have seen before, meaning the last two sessions, what make us see the world as not new is the historical ideational constructions. Ideational includes Plato and Judeo-Christianity. Meaning it's because we started to think that thought is better than what we see around us. We started organizing the world in accordance to these thoughts. And then we understood that everything is bound by necessity, and hence everything is repetitive. And hence, when you know the law, well, what else do you want to know? Because everything is just a repetition of the law. Hence, the world becomes quite boring because everything is governed by necessities, and so on and so forth. So there's nothing new under the sun. And this is really a way of thinking which Nietzsche considered it's a way of thinking of the depressed. What is a depressed person? And for Nietzsche, this is the worst thing that can happen to you. A depressed person is someone who starts seeing things as already old. You know, you wake up in your room and it's your room. You know, it's so boring. There's nothing to do. It's, you know, it's Beirut, as some people say. Beirut is so boring. It's the same all the time. Nothing new happens in it. I see the same people, the same, I hear the same conversations, I eat the same food. It's so boring and it's so depressing. This is when you are sick. This is when you are, for Nietzsche, you are sick because you're not able to see anymore how everywhere, all the time, I repeat, everywhere, all the time, wherever is the situation, everything is forever new. And why are you like that? Because you are contaminated. You are contaminated by people sometimes who poison you. You are contaminated because you build these habits, by your habits of thought, by your beliefs. And this is how you are contaminated. And of course, for Nietzsche, you need to break out of that. You need to break out of that if you ought to see the world again as new, as exciting, and to capture this excitement. And what you have seen so far, I will not repeat what you did last time, is the breaking out of history and the rational world, and how when you break out, you start seeing the world again as new. So far, I repeat, we have will to power and eternal return of the new. And then you have the will to power itself is either appreciative, meaning it's able to see that everything is always new and exhilarating, or depreciative, meaning it starts to judge the world and starts to build other worlds that are supposed to be better than this world. Now, what we are doing here, when I say that Plato has a depreciative will, I am doing an interpretation. I am really like reading him And to read Plato, meaning I am evaluating if he's affirming or negating life, this is what you call an interpretation. And interpretation happens into 3 steps only. I'll just tell them to you. It's very simple. When you have a phenomenon is anything you see. It could be a turtle, it could be a work of art like Picasso, it could be a movie like a movie by Eisenstein or by Godard. It could be a person like your neighbor. It could be something that happened with you, like someone slapped you and you can't forget it anymore. It could be an event like that. So a phenomenon could be anything. It could be the span or anything. This is what you call a phenomenon. And you, when you do an interpretation, you are going to show the forces behind the phenomenon and then the hierarchy of forces inside this phenomenon, and last, the quality of this hierarchy and the will to power behind. What I'm saying is very, very simple, and you do it all the time. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's take the revolution. The Lebanese October Revolution in 2019. If you want to read it a la Plato, what would you say? You would say, you know what, this is not the perfect revolution because, you know, people are not, they're not ideal enough, they're not really thinking or fighting, or they don't know their marks very well, and the revolution shouldn't be like that, they should be like this. And this is how you go if you want to judge the revolution. Now, if you want to do it a la Nietzsche, what do? You say, okay, I have this thing called the revolution, this is my phenomenon, or a turtle, this is my phenomenon. And then you ask, what are the forces behind it? You remember, they used to say that behind the revolution, you had the embassies, the French embassy and the British embassy and the American embassies, pumping money into these poor little revolutionaries because they want to destroy the Lebanese structure. Now, if you think that, you are detecting the force behind the revolution, and in that case, of course, the force is a bad one. It's reactive, you know, it's embassies and stuff like that. If you say, well, no, behind the revolution, you have young people who are trying to create another world, a new world, who are trying to liberate themselves from the domination of the militiamen, etc. The force behind this phenomena would be positive. Okay, I hope you're getting how he functions. Now, after that, you go up one step. These forces in the revolution, for example, you will have enthusiasm and thought and creativity. These are now different forces in the revolution. And you have to know really what is dominating here. So are the revolutionaries able to think their condition and create strategies to take power, or are they just singing and dancing in the street because they are, you know, flirting with each other and happy with that? So here you have to see what dominates what. If it's, you know, the carnival that is dominating thought, you will have a reactive structure. I hope it's clear. If you say these young people are just going there because they want to listen to music and not anymore really provoke a change, it's already not bad, but you know, they're not really like carrying change to its higher level. On the other hand, if you say no, they are dancing and singing, but in the same time that they are thinking of finding ways to change the whole sectarian structure. In this case, an active force is dominating the reactive force. Dancing, eating, and sleeping are reactive forces. And hence you have a more active hierarchy of forces. And last, you say, in the name of what these revolutionaries are doing this, it's because they want to have better lives, lives which are more free, more mobile, more creative, and hence they are affirming the will. So their will to power is an affirmative will. The hierarchy of forces, if they are really working for a change, is a hierarchy of active forces. And this is how you evaluate the phenomena, which is in this case the revolution. So I hope by now you got this little Nietzschean story. And this is, if you want, the integration model that we have with Nietzsche. Now to really like recapitulate and make it very clear for you, you have a table page 120, 119, 120, that compare the classical structure to the postmodern structure, meaning it compares modernity to postmodernity. And I'm going to share it with you. Where is it? Okay, it's not here. Okay. So I'm sharing it now with you. I hope you are seeing it.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So it's page 118, as you can see in the notes. And I'm just going to read quickly what I've just said. This way, when you read this table, you don't get lost. And if you get lost, you can refer to this audio, because you really need, I think, to understand this difference between a classical world and the postmodern world. You will have to deal with it if you are an artist or a movie maker for the rest of your life, I think, unless a great philosopher comes in and he shows us that these two views, well, we have a third one, but this doesn't exist so far, or as far as I know. So as you can see, you have movement image on one side and time image on the other side. In the classical world, meaning movement image, the idea is the real, copies participate in the real by approximation. I hope this is clear. The idea is the real, and you can be more or less faithful to what you understood. You can't make a movie that is going to be the Russian Revolution. You can make a movie which is a representation of the Russian Revolution, which is more or less approximation of the real idea. On the other hand, in the time image, the will to power is the real, meaning this never-ending going beyond yourself and wanting and doing. And each being is a type of will to power. You know, there's no hierarchy between beings. We are all desire and realization. A turtle is not better than you, nor you than a turtle. You and the turtle are will to powers. And the only kind of evaluation, as you will see, is between affirming or denying life. So it's not anymore as in the classical sense where the intellect was, or intelligent animals were better than the other animals. So the specification and the selection of the copies is verbal, and it is measured in relation to the degree of closeness to the idea, truthful and false copy. What does this mean? It means that you can create copies which are more or less embodying the idea, or more or less not embodying the idea. This is why you have this problem of the false copy. If you take someone like Le Corbusier, as I've already said, you see you have to create a good arcade, a good arc made of stone, because this arc will really like genuinely embody the predicaments of the idea, of the law of nature. But if you do it with plastic or with concrete and it just looks like an arcade, this is what Plato calls a simulacra, because you are imitating an appearance and you're not really like embodying the idea. This is why you have here the problem of the good copies and the bad copies, of the truthful and the false, which I think you have really a lot in the language evaluating in the language that evaluates art and architecture. If you are in a classical image, you know, if you are doing art and architecture in a classical image, you have this this kind of evaluation because you believe that there's a norm that needs to be attained. Now, on the other hand, the specification and the selection of the will are effective and achieved in the trial of repetition of the eternal return. You see, what is he saying here? It's like the little story I told you about the, do you want to do that forever? You will be really good, or for Nietzsche, centered and real, if you will to do what you're doing, and not if you are good as a good copy of a norm or of a model. I hope this is clear. Now, division between the real and the imaginary. The real is the one, the image is the many. To understand a phenomena, we need to relate it to an idea or to give a definition, the meaning of the phenomenon. I hope by now this is clear. The images are many, but they represent what is in the idea. On the other hand, for Nietzsche, the phenomena is a consequence of a force relation, and understanding consists in showing the relation of forces that invest the phenomena. Understanding consists in revealing the sense. So this, I hope, is clear. You have the revolution, or you have a movie. Let's say Raghib Alemi. There's no need to try to understand he's the copy of what. For Nietzsche, all what you need to understand is what are the forces moving Raghib Alemi to do this kind of music. Is it Rotana production who wants to make money? And if you want to make money, you are a reactive force because all what you're thinking about is eating and sleeping and preserving yourself, so you are reactive. While if you are Schoenberg, or let's say if you take someone from here, if you are Soap Kills or Yasmin Hamdan, you are trying to push, the boundaries of Arab music, and you're trying to create another way of doing Arabic music. So you're not just thinking about your money. So the force moving you is creative, so you are active. I hope here you get the difference between assessing the phenomena. You don't assess a phenomenon just by saying, does it fit the idea? Is it a good piano or a bad piano? Is it a good piece of music or not? But you see the forces behind it. So in a classical word, thinking consists in imitating in the best possible way the real grasped by thought, i.e. the idea. I hope by now this is clear, meaning, let's say, the ideal husband. Okay, so how can I be the ideal husband? And this is when you start, thinking and working yourself up in order to be the ideal husband. Or if you take the ideal revolution, the ideal painting, the ideal sculpture, you really start to think, how can I make the perfect arcade, the perfect proportion building, the perfect movie about Beirut blast, or about the sectarian system, or about the Russian Revolution. And this is where thought comes in. Thought is really, how can I make it perfect? How can I really be able to imitate the idea? In a Nietzschean word, on the other hand, thinking consists in giving an interpretation in relation to a phenomenon, interpretations that acts like a force in the phenomenon to build a center of perception. Now, what does it mean? It means simply that if you have Jesus, instead of thinking, is he really like the God-man? Is he really the incarnation of God or stuff like that? You have to interpret this phenomenon. You have to say, well, you know what? Jesus is a tired kind of young man because all what he wants is to die in peace, and he's not really affirming life. This is how you interpret the phenomena Nietzsche. If you take a movie like, if you take a phenomena Raghib Alemi, or a movie, a Hollywood movie, to think it is to show the forces behind it, to interpret it, and to evaluate the will behind it. Hierarchy for a classic. Hierarchies are distributed in accordance to the proximity to the truth. In Plato, when you really grasp the truth, like what is an ideal man, you become a wise man and you imitate this wise man and you become the model to follow. And of course, those who are not as ideal as you, well, you dominate them in a kind of hierarchy. And this is still present in the organization of art schools and art practices. For example, you have the artist who has a vision of the idea, and then he brings a team that is going to work for him to realize that vision. And he's the one who dominates these because he has the vision and he grasps the truth. On the other hand, for Nietzsche, a hierarchy is distributed between those who affirm life and those who negate life, explaining life being the expression of a tired will to power. The myth consists in the vision that we have when we are seized by a high tonality of the soul. So who is hierarchically superior for Nietzsche is the one who's able to affirm life. And here I repeat, and here I hope you start seeing this in concrete. You know, you have artists like Godard, and you have artists like, I don't know, like, you have artists like Cécile B. Demille. They are both great, you know. Or you have artists like, you know, that guy, the guy who made E.T., because Godard really doesn't like him. So I have, you know, all kinds of artists. But if you take artists like Cécile B. Demille, which was like the big master of Hollywood. Now, Cécile B. Demille, of course, he's a great, I'm not saying that he's not great, but it's clear that Cécile B. Demille, the way he makes cinema is a guy who has a vision and understanding, and you need to really like to have a huge machine that is going to be able to implement this vision in accordance to his understanding of the idea. If you take the movie, for example, The 10 Commandments, which is the story of Abraham, you have really like, you know, sets and effects, and it's really costly. And you have to really like organize this little world of yours under the domination of the vision, and you are on top. Now, if you take someone like Godard or someone like Perrault, really the hierarchy doesn't come from the one who has this kind of vision, but it comes from the one who's able to show us something new. If you take Godard, he's able to show us that, you know, there's a kind of something that happens between writing and welding, or between living and speaking. And what's also quite interesting when it comes to the organization of the work is that if you take Godard, even though he was organized, he used to think that he used to let his actors improvise because he wants to see something unexpected happen. You see, it's a different kind of hierarchy now between the actors and the movie maker, for example. If you take someone like Perrault, it's even more. Perrault says, me, I bring my camera. I don't know yet what is going to happen. It's not that I have a vision. All I know is that with the camera among us, the people start to go into a kind of delirium. They start making jokes, and I'm able to trigger in the people who are with me the desire to fabulate, to go inside, to go into a legendary kind of speak. And this is how me and them, we collaborate together to create this kind of thing called, let's say, La Chasse aux Marsouins. La Chasse aux Marsouins is what? It's a movie about very secluded people on an island in Canada. And Perrault comes with his camera, and they start telling him the legends about the whale who lives in the river nearby, and that actually their ancestors, they used to be able to capture this whale by putting sticks of wood, which are exactly, if I remember well, 18 centimeters away or 11 centimeters away. So it has to be 11 centimeters or it doesn't work. So of course, when you're watching the movie, you see these people who are in a total delirium, and you enjoy this kind of delirium. But you can see here that the hierarchy between the artist and those who work in quote for him or with him is not anymore the same as in Cécile B. Demille, where they really have to execute his vision. Here you really have a kind of hierarchy which is articulated around the new. So to continue with this integration, if you take in the classical world, we said that the concept governs the images. If you take Eisenstein, the way he understands the revolution and the way he puts images together, this is what you call pathetic narration. What is pathetic narration? Is that the concept is going to unfold into images. We are here. I hope you're not lost. You just need to look at the table. So here you have the concept we're going to really like present itself into images, and the more it gets presented into images, the more it is precise. And the less you have images, the less it is precise. If I show you one image of Beirut, you don't really understand, you just understand Beirut. If I show you Beirut, pollution, garbage, sewer system, you understand polluted Beirut, so on and so forth. So this is what you call a pathetic narration, where it's the concept which is the center around which the images are organized. In a Nietzschean kind of integration of the images, you have what you call falsifying narration. Now, what is a falsifying narration? Is that, well, you don't have anymore one concept that organizes the images, because what you have is a problem. You have the problem, for example, of what is life, or what does it mean to speak, or what is war. If you take Godard doesn't tell you I have the concept, war, I know what is war, like Eisenstein, and war is divided like that, and you have to put these images in this order to convey war. Godard tells you, I don't know what is war. I have a problematic concept, I don't know. If you want to simply distinguish postmodernity from modernity, modernity they know. They know what is nature, they know what is war, they know what is a revolution, what is a man, what is a real man, what is a fake man, etc., so on and so forth. While in postmodernity, they don't know. Really, like you have a question mark, like in Godard, what is life? We don't know. And when we don't know, this is when we start to look. I hope it's clear. When you don't know, this is when you are attentive. What is life? Maybe life is a turtle walking, crawling on a beach. Maybe it's, I don't know, a man seducing a woman. Maybe it's, what do I know? Maybe it's someone going to work. Maybe all of these are life. We don't know, and this is when you build your series. This is one example. Another example would be, for example, you have a problematic, traumatic memory, and you don't know what happened to you, and you start seeing your life getting distorted by this problematic point, as you have seen with Carnet, for example, or with, let's say, Mankiewicz. You have a bifurcation in time. You don't know when your love story started to divert, to go bad, and you start to try to remember when it started to go back, and in all these circles, you see your life getting distorted. You have all kinds of problematic concepts, or what we call in the image types problematic points. And when you have these problematic points, like colors which are not anymore the color of the bottle or the color of the beach or anything like that, when you have these problematic points, this is when you are able to start building your series and circuits. Okay, I hope this is clear. So this is what you call a falsifying narration. This is heavily used by someone like Rob Grier in his movies. I hope you watch them. When you don't know anymore if he went to the room, he didn't went to the room, and you have these bifurcating stories on the same story. So to finish this table, so I will skip this one. So you have in the classical world what you call metaphoric description. What is a metaphoric description? Is when you have two determinations that you would like to show in one image. For example, raping is like killing. You show like in L'Herbier, you film a man raping a woman as if he's killing her. This is what you call a metaphor. This is when you have two determination, raping, killing in one image that you see. Or you have, for example, the bourgeoisie are pigs, and you show a bourgeois eating like a pig. This is a metaphor. And this is what allows you to do a judgment in the image. When you look at that, you think immediately, the bourgeois are pigs. On the other hand, when it comes to description in the postmodern world, you have what you call pure descriptions. What is a pure description? It means that the image and the real become indiscernible. The image and its description cannot be anymore distinguished. What does it mean? If you take someone like Rupture, this is one of the descriptive techniques. When he starts describing how the sun is hitting the trees and the trees' shadows are going at 45 degrees and the banana trees are distant from each other by 1 meter and so on and so forth, the description is creating the objects that we are seeing, and the objects that we are seeing doesn't exist outside of this description. I hope this is clear. You see, what's the difference between a metaphor and a pure description? A pure description, the object itself exists in the descriptive process. I'll give you another example. If you take the what you have seen with the whole of time, with Orson Welles or with Rupture, Orson Welles as an entity only exists in the way people are describing him, because he's dead, so we can't really see who he is anymore. And the way Orson Welles does his movie is not to go and look for facts. This would be a classical way, like I'm going to really know who is Orson Welles in reality. I'm going to really try to reconstruct the truth about him. Instead of doing that, what you can do is ask people how they remember him. And you already see that here, if they just speak or describe him from their memories, well, this entity, Orson Welles, as he is remembered, is not the same as the truthful Citizen Kane, and this is what you call a pure description. I hope this is by now more or less clear. So you can have other forms of that. If you take Rossellini, pure description, at one point in Europa 51, the actress, she says, I thought that I have seen prisoners. I think Harun Farouki made a movie on that later on, but anyway. Now, Ingrid Bergman says, I thought I have seen prisoners when she went to a factory. Ingrid Bergman goes to a factory, and there, for her, what she saw is prisoners. It's not a metaphor. Why it's not a metaphor? Because it's not like the factory people were moving like prisoners. No. For her, this image is itself prison, as such, literally and not metaphorically. So, for example, you are going back home in the metro or on the bus, and you see a man sitting there grabbing his newspaper, and he's going back from work. And you see in that the misery of the world. This is what you call a pure description, because for you, this image as it is, not metaphorically, not because he's bending too much or he's crying or whatever. No, the image as it is the concentration of the misery of the world. It's as if the misery of the world was able to take shape in this singular image. So this is what you call pure descriptions, okay? So if you can see here, instead of having pathetic narration, the concept associates the images, or metaphoric descriptions, I'm going to tell you that the bourgeoisie are like pigs. This is classical. You have now falsifying narrations. You have a problem and things starts to oscillate. You have series or you have circuits around the problem, etc. And you have what you call pure descriptions, meaning actually the entity only exists in the description itself. The misery of the world exists only in this image as such, or Citizen Kane only exists the way we remember him, or the garden, which is made of all these distances that Rupture is describing, only exists in the book of Rupture. And here you can, I will continue, you can oppose two types of memories. For example, in the classical world, you have what you call automatic recognition. You are at ease in the world, you see your friend, you know him, you shake hands, you talk about things, the weather, the collapse, Corona, and then you move on, you see another friend, and again you shake hands, you talk about Corona, the weather, and the collapse. And this is what you call automatic recognition. On the other hand, the form of memory in a postmodern world is more that of of an attentive recognition, meaning you see someone and you don't really know who he is really. And here you see the problematic again. You look at someone and for you, you don't know if he's your friend, if he's from the office, if he's from the army. And this is when you start going into the circus of memory to remember who this man or this woman is. And this is when you have this kind of attentive recognition or a memory which is a bit, indifficult. So to continue with that, I'll just move to the dramatic history. A dramatic history in the classical world is really when you have a causal chaining in accordance to the concept. The revolution unfolds with moment one, which is the opposition to the leaders. Then you have the organization. Then you have the revolution. This is what we call a dramatic history. While in the postmodern world, we have what we call crystalline storytelling. What does it mean, crystalline storytelling? It's when you have an indistinguishability of the subject and the object, the man and nature, like in the internal visions, fabulation, and intercessors. You have a reading of an image by another. Now, what does this sentence mean? It's what you have seen. Let's say, if you take someone like Rouge or Perrault, it's not that now we are talking about the real, but we are really like telling you a story told by those who are playing and affecting those who are playing these roles. And this is when you have, let's say, the figure of the fabulation. If you take Walid Rad, for example, he's not really reconstructing the history of the Lebanese war. What he's doing is a crystalline storytelling where there's him and his double, him and Dr. Fakhouri, or him and Trabulsi, or him and whatever, all of these characters that he invented. This is the crystalline dimension. And when he goes into this kind of delirium, this is the distorted vision of the Lebanese wars as it occurs in his imaginary. So to conclude on that, I'll just take the difference between rational cut and irrational cut. We've said that in a classical work of art, you have rational cuts, meaning each form should follow the articulation of the concept. Please remember that when you do your integration. You see, if you take someone like Paul Klee, he draws a square and then a zigzag and then red, because for him, the red, let's say, is this part of the concept of the dynamism of someone sleeping. The zigzag might be the mosquito flying above his head, and the black heavy square on a horizontal line is the body lying on bed. And you can see how each figure or image is articulated or stops when the other one begins in accordance with the articulations of the concept. I hope this is clear by now. This is what you call rational cuts. On the other hand, when it comes to the postmodern image, you have irrational cuts, meaning you don't know why the sequence begins here or it ends there. If you remember the best illustration to make it simple, in the movie Je t'aime, Love, Love, by Alain René, when you have this guy who is in the new sphere and he's trying to go back in time to know if he killed his girlfriend or not by forgetting the heater on. This is a problematic point, by the way. So he's doing going back in time to get to this problematic point. And the montage is hatched. He's in his room, and then puff, he's in a garden, puff, he's in the new sphere, then he's swimming with his girlfriend. And here you see these are jumps which are not following any ordered concept. He can jump anywhere. He can jump 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, in 1 week. And this is really the irrational cut. Now, we've seen other irrational cuts. For example, like when Duras puts sounds and images that don't fit together. Their relation is irrational. Because in quote, I underline and I put it in bold and blinking. in code, there seems to be no relation between what is being heard and what is being seen. But of course, why I put it in bold and underlined, because Duras is able to put these words with this kind of image, these sounds with these images, and she's able to capture the power of desire in between. So you see, the irrational cut is not that you do whatever, because usually artists, usually meaning practically 80% of what you see in contemporary art galleries and art fairs, they think that now, given that you had Duras and Godard, you can do whatever, you know. You can just put your camera there and forget it. You can put any sound on any image, as if there's nothing at stake. Well, no, the irrational cut is actually a very difficult tool to manipulate, because you have to be able to capture a power by building things with irrational cuts, which is very difficult to master. You see someone like Duras or Godard or all of these great movie makers, Alain Resnais, etc., who use the irrational cut, they are great because they're really able to capture a power. And what are the powers that we have seen? You have many powers. You have the power of the dreams, the power of desire, the power of what happens in between, the power of, you know, we have seen a whole plethora of powers. I'll show you the table in 1 second. And this is when you use irrational cuts. Okay? So to conclude, now really, and this really fits the ontology. You see, when you have the will to power as your ontology, you have what we call a dispersive ontology. What does it mean? A dispersive ontology is that you and the chicken and the cat and the mouse and the tree, you are equal. It means that I have will to power, the cat has will to power, and the tree has to will to power. So we are all in relation to the will to power the same. Of course, we're not doing the same things, but we are all willing and doing. So this is what you call the dispersion of the and, or the power of the dispersive outside. Meaning you have this and this and that. You have this and that and that and that. Which is actually interesting if you look at a bit postmodern cinema or artworks. You don't have anymore this kind of, I'm only doing, let's say, a movie on war, so you only have war. So if you're doing a postmodern movie on war, what is the first kind of, it's almost a joke today. Well, you have war, and at the same time you have something else. You have, I don't know, someone, the making of ice cream in the same time. So you have in the same movie a war going on and someone producing ice cream. You already feel that, this is a bit postmodern. What I'm trying to explain to you is that this only works, or else it becomes very boring and very nonsensical, if you're able to show the relation between making ice cream and the war as belonging to the same degrees of will to power. This becomes interesting. For example, if you take someone like Nietzsche, he makes series of things which seems to be unrelated, like the king, the Leech's man, Zarathustra, the Pope who lost his eye. Okay, you start wondering, okay, but what the Pope who lost his eye has to do with the Leech's man, or with the lost king, or with Jesus and St. Paul? So he puts like that, and Voltaire, and. So you end up having this kind of series of things which seem to be unrelated. Nietzsche can put you, let's say, I don't know, if you want to do it as a Nietzschean, which is Foucault, he'll tell you, well, you know what, there's a relation between the iPhone and a building in the Netherlands and the way we started to cook soup in Belgica. And you start wondering, yeah, but what does these things have to do with one another? And here Foucault would show you, and Foucault, he's a Nietzschean, he will show you that actually the will to power is the same into all of these things. For example, the disciplinary societies for Foucault, as a will to power, which is to organize things in an analytical spatiotemporal organization, you'll have costumes of students, you'll have doors which are short, this way we can look beneath to see who is doing what, and you have all kinds of gadgets like a whistle and a ring and all kinds of things which are really like the manifestation of this will to power. So I'm trying to tell you is that in the integration of an artwork or whatever you are doing, a movie, or if you are a postmodern, when you say this and that and that and that, what is interesting is to show if all of these things pertain to the same will to power or to conflicting will to powers. And this is what you will be able to see in between. You see, and this one have the disparity of the outside. The disparity of the outside means that when you build your series, series that comes from a problematic point, let's say Jesus, St. Paul, the prophet, Plato, this is the series of the nihilist. You can put with it another series, let's say the series of the active, Spinoza, Marx, Deleuze, Foucault, and you will see maybe something happening in between. We've seen that with Godard. You build a series, let's say, of living, you build a series of working, and maybe something will happen in between. You build a series of resisting in Palestine, another series of living in France, and you start seeing that maybe after all, the same will to power is animating both series, or opposed will to powers are animating both series. So I hope this is clear, more or less. So now I'll show you another table to make this more clear. Now you did the, the integration as such. And now page 108, 107, 108, you have the table of the time images. And you see that they all work in the same way. They all have a point and then two. You see, it's like a V, like that. You have the problematic point, which is at the intersection of the two arms of the V. Then you have here the actual and the virtual, or two actuals, it doesn't matter, but where one plays the role of the virtual for the other. Will and power, will and power. And you, when you create a postmodern image, you have to put here the will and here the power, and it has to spin. If it doesn't spin, it means that, well, the work of art is not that good. So I'll just give you a very easy one. If you take in the image recollection, yes, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So in the image that you can see here, page 107, you know Carnet, the guy who he doesn't know why he's violent. So in this image here, what you can see is that you have a destinal recollection type of image, and you have a traumatic event. Now, the traumatic event is the point, is the problematic point. And what you have is the past and the present, which are the two things. His present, where he's violent and he doesn't understand why, and he goes into the past. And from the past, he goes back into the present. And this is his vortex. And if you can show how from the past we go back to the present and the present to the past, your movie, when it comes to a traumatic memory, will become interesting, because here you would have understood the way memory works when it comes to the kind of to anchoring memory in a traumatic point. Now, so this is if you take the destinal recollection. Now, if you take bifurcating points, you don't know what happened with you, why your marriage is breaking up, like in 3 Women, and you start going back to the past in order to find reason why
your image is breaking up. So you see here you have a little difference. You go here from the present to the past as reason, or from the present to the past as cause. And this shows you the power of time or the power of the past. And I really think this is a crucial thing in the time images. If you can't show the power of time, forget it. It's either gonna be useless or boring, or I don't know. It's just gonna be like one of these movies where the guy doesn't want to be classic and he's just trying things and he doesn't know what he's doing. This is what we usually have, we have artists and movie makers, they don't know what they're doing. Most, I mean, the majority, not those who become like Mankiewicz, Carnet, or Godard. I really like trial and error. I try this sound and okay, it's good. It doesn't work. What I think will capture a power. If you are not capturing a power, you have a problem. If you're really not capturing power, you have a problem, because we wonder what is going on. If you start just jumping from the past to the present, like in these movies, okay, it's not that interesting. It becomes like a bit gimmickal or formal, as we say. But here, with this kind of structure, you can capture the power of the past or the power of time. And this allows you to critique. It allows you to critique the rational projection and the conscious projection, which are dictated by history and the rational world. You want to get married, you want to have a good job, you just want to be a good guy, and then there's something that doesn't allow you to do that. If you're interested in this kind of issue, you can rely on the power of time or the power of the past to explain why things are not working, and also to criticize those who think that, well, you know what, it's enough to just have a nice, like a life in a straitjacket, to realize the good. You could be one of these tortured spirits that show you that you cannot realize the good, and actually that the good is just there hanging on top of us, and actually the good is just one of these constructs, and you are always deviating from it. I hope this is clear. Now, if you take the crystal, you also have, again, you have the point of indiscernibility between you and you. Me as me and me as a professor, me as me and me as the son, me, these things that we are seeing, which are the double, or the past and the present and its past, like when you have a déjà vu. And of course, here you could have two situations. Either you become indiscernible from your other, from your double, and this is what we call this is when the point makes the doubles collapse on each other, and you have this indiscernibility between these two things, between the real and its image. They become indiscernible. Or you have a reversal. For example, when I'm a professor, I behave in a certain way, and then if now, I don't know, my mother comes in and she starts screaming at me, well, you will see the other side and the professor will be destroyed. And you have this kind of reversal now between the roles. And here we have seen many movie makers who play on this crystalline structure, like Fellini or Visconti. Visconti, he really deals with aristocrats which are blocked in their aristocratic role, and they see the world pass in front of them because they're all the time taken into this them and them as aristocrats, and they're not anymore connected to the world, if you take Visconti. So this structure can allow you to make a critique of everyday life or a critique of social roles. For example, in Visconti, you have this musician in Death in Venice, which is completely like taken into his role as a musician, and he becomes so enclosed in this role that when he's about to die, he really looks at this young man playing in water, and he thinks, "Oh my God, I lost my life by being obsessed with this kind of desire to be a kind of experimental musician," which is the story of the Death in Venice. So I hope here you see how you can do a critique of that with this crystalline image. Now we have seen also the dream image. In the dream image, the problematic points, if you take the normal dream when you sleep, is what we call the perceptive dust. You are half asleep, and the sound of the AC with the colors in the room, which are dim, they start to transform into monsters and uncles and grandmothers and ghosts and I don't know what. And here you see that you have each image becomes a virtual for the next actual image. So I repeat just for you to get it once and for all. Now, what you really need to grasp is this, the V. If you take the past and the present in bifurcating point, you have past and present. The present is here, it's actual, and you go into the past, into this virtuality to find why your present is like that, and you start to spin. You have another structure when it comes to the dream. So when it comes to the dream, you have an actual image. I dream of my uncle, and then it takes me to a dolphin, and the dolphin takes me to a whale, and the whale takes me to a ship, and the ship takes me to I don't know, the Netherlands, and so on and so forth. So you see now, the relation is not anymore present past, it's between this image and the new one, and the image and the new one. And this is how it spins when it comes to the dream. And the spinning movement here is anamorphic. It's an image that takes me to another, and so on and so forth. This is why it's very delicate and it's very important to distinguish anamorphosis from, for example, metaphors. You see, metaphors are rigid. The bourgeois is a pig, and you see it. While anamorphosis is dynamic, it's a spin. It's an image that takes you to another. And of course, if you want to do good anamorphic images, you have to be able to reproduce the spin. If you take Dali, when Dali makes a clock that is melting, this is a metaphor. But when he makes these images where you look at it, it looks like an old man, then it looks like a woman, then it looks like a cave. These are anamorphic images. And of course, all of these, the metaphors and the anamorphoses, are taken into an impulse image, which is not a dream image. So you can see how you can now complexify the images. So Dali is a classical image because he wants to show the origin, but you can make an image which is purely anamorphic, like in the, let's say, if you take the work of Babsy Berkeley or of Minelli, where you really have these never-ending transformations, anamorphic transformations, which relate, of course, to dance. Dancing, again, you have, let's say, in Singing in the Rain, the problematic points are here, which are the physical dust. The sidewalk is not anymore a sidewalk, it is just a degree zero. And then you have a movement that calls for a new movement. I start playing with my umbrella as if it's a baseball bat. Then it becomes, I don't know, then it becomes a kind of cane to walk on. Then it becomes an umbrella. Then it becomes a thing to capture wind with, and it starts to swerve. But for that, you need the problematic point, which is here. And this is what usually is kind of dance thing which goes on, which opens on a critique of behaviors. You know, people walk straight and stuff like that. They only use sidewalks as sidewalks and so on and so forth. Now, if you take the whole of the past again, if you take Orson Welles with Citizen Kane, Orson Welles and his death, who is Citizen Kane? This is a problematic point. And then you go into these memories, which are the actual person and his virtual doubles. So Citizen Kane, was he a good guy? And then you have the doubles of Orson Welles, all these people who are telling the stories. And it starts to swirl, and it builds this character called Citizen Kane, which is, we don't know really who he is. And this, of course, opens on a critique of defined identities that you can do with this kind of construct. You can do the same with collective memory, with René, as you have seen, with Hiroshima Mon Amour, or with other movies like Mon Oncle d'Amérique, where you really have a collective memory. And again, you have a problematic community, and you spin around to do that. Now, so with the whole of the present, you have seen Rob Grier, I will not do it again, where what you see becomes problematic. You look at a bottle and it's problematic. You look at it as if you don't know what is that, and you start doing descriptions where the actual bottle and your virtual description starts to run around each other and build this entities that only exist in the description, as you can read it in the many books of Rob-Grier, where he's able to extract this power of presence. So as you can see, each time you do this, problematic point, virtual, actual, if you do it well, you're able to capture a power, as is the power of dream. By making an image becomes a virtual of another image. Or the power of the past, by making the present be connected to a virtual past, the traumatic point. Or by making the power of dance, by making a gesture connect to a virtual gesture, or by showing a mnemonic power, the power of memory, by making here the actual person to the way it is remembered and how memory modifies people and stuff like that. Or you can capture the power of presence, like in Rob Grier, where you're able to show that the bottle is a pure brutal presence, which has nothing to do with technology, history, and all of these things, by connecting the bottle to the description of the bottle. Or you can do the power of the present by connecting the actual event to its virtual interpretations, like in the movie you have seen, L'Immortel or La Captive, where you have something happen, but no one knows exactly what happened, because for each person, what happened is different. And when you start connecting all of these possible interpretation of the event, you encounter the power of present and not anymore presence. So for the order of time, it's again the same story. You have here, you disjoin, you break the images from one another, and you have what you call a ballade. It's like Taxi Driver, where he's driving and you see people, just like that. And this is a dissolution of the word. So you have actual images chained together without a virtuality. And here the only thing that you see is this power of dissolution of the word. Or you can have optical sonorous. Again, you have here the problematic point, which are the optic sonorous sounds and images. The blue is not anymore the blue of the sea or the blue of the sky, it's blue. And then you connect blue to a sound, to another color, to another shape, and this creates this kind of optic sonorous art that you can find in Tati, in Jerry Lewis, but also in Vasarely and in many artists that deal with that. And these, of course, up sonorous things, they function like signals. Okay, you have a red light, like the sounds of Jerry Lewis. And this opens on a power, the power of automation. You just need to look at Tati or Jerry Lewis to see that there's a power of automation, because, when Tati listens to this sound, he turns. When he hears this, he does that. And you have this power of automation, which is really a power. For example, in the movies of Tati, usually towards the end of the movies, there's a kind of destructive inductive scene where you have a chain reaction, where everything starts to automatically react on each other by signals, beep beep, beep beep, and the hotel crumbles down. Watch in that regard, I think. Anyway, it will come back to me. So in one of his movies towards the end, you have this really like destruction of the set by these chain reaction of signals. And you have seen Godard with the series. The problematic point is what is war? We don't know what is war. So this is, if you want, here is a problematic concept. And then you have series that reply to that. So you have here the virtuality of the concept, and then you have a series of images, and they start to interact together. And this opens on a power of reflections that you have seen with Godard. I hope you will make something like that one day, not you, but someone here. Really, you start seeing that actually, if you know how to ask people questions, I say I hope someone will do it because it's so easy. You just need to really go into that. It doesn't have any production cost. You just need a camera and the right question. So here you have the power of reflections that appears. Like when Godard was asking this young man if he thinks that welding is like writing. You can, if you want to do the exercise alone, you know, what would be the problems or the questions that we can ask, let's say, in the Lebanese Beirut context, that will really trigger a form of reflection that will make us think. Be it on the militias, power, or on the corniche, or water, or work, or women, or men, I don't know. You pick your theme, but what I'm trying to say is that the form that Godard is able to show is that when you make a problematic concept, for example, what is a confession, to make it really blunt, or what is a leader, to make it really like the news, really here, if you say we don't know anymore what is a confession or what is a Sunni, a Shia, Maronite, etc., and you start building your series, maybe you will be able to reflect on these categories that make this political space in this case. Is a confession like a football team? We don't know. You start building your series. Now, really what is difficult in this art, because for me it's an art, and even what an art, like a great art, is really to be able to see that actually, and this here we move to seriality. Maybe if I put confessions with football team, it doesn't work. Maybe I have to put it with cooking. Maybe confessions are like kitchens where we cook, and you start seeing why. And this is when it becomes interesting. Is belonging to a confession like, and you see if it works. You see if it passes between this and that. And this is where the work is. And this is what you have called seriality. So you have an incommensurable point, something that cannot be measured by any of these two series, but that is going to make them interact. They're going to make them interact by creating these, these fulguration. You start seeing that actually resisting in Palestine is like living in France. You have this kind of fulguration. And this, of course, opens on a critique of conception. Now, here, for example, you are so sure of what is a confession, what is a revolution, what is a bank, what is a Lebanese. We are almost sure about all of these things. And I think if you want to do series and serialities, you put this in question and you start seeing that maybe we could think that different. Now, this theorematic, the belief, we didn't see it a lot, but you have it in also movies by Bresson, like Pickpocket, or with Dreyer, but I didn't develop it too much, so I'll skip it to the theorematic. The theorematic is what you have seen with Pasolini. Pasolini, where you have a problematic point, the unthinkable. You know, the man goes there and puff, it's an event. We don't understand what happened. And then you have series that starts to build. The son that becomes a scatologic artist, the maid that becomes a saint, the father that becomes a beast, the woman that becomes an erotoman. This is when you build your series around this kind of obscure center. And this shows you a power of thought. This shows you a power of thought, because thought is here taken not anymore like in Plato, like ordered thought who is going to let you grasp the concepts that corresponds to the idea, but no, it's like this power that disturbs you. It is what doesn't let you just settle into a kind of unthought mediocrity, or let's say if it's not a mediocrity, or this kind of statu quo, and it pushes you to always research and find something else. This is why it's a critique of quietism. You just can't just relax. There's something always pushing you to go beyond this kind of just being comfortable. And this is the power of thought, and you can show that like Pasolini did. And you have seen also the power of the body. Again, now the body is a problematic point, and you put it with a man, with a woman, and you don't know anymore if the body is masculine or feminine. And this creates a kind of a critique of bodily established behavior and sexuality. And to conclude with the time image table, you have what you call the series of time. So far you have the circuits of time, where you have the crystals, recollection, dream image, whole of the past, whole of the present. All of these are the circuits of time, meaning physical time, and how physical time and the powers are the power of presence. When you freak out while you're looking at your furniture, the power of the dream and dancing, the power of the past or of time, the power of vision and of crystallization. These are the powers that are going to disrupt and disturb your Platonic structure. Now, the eternal return has three moments: the order of time, the symbol of time, and the series of time. And the eternal return is about getting in contact again with the new, seeing things as new. And to see things as new, you have seen the order of time, where you start seeing things as detached, be it words or colors or images. You start to take them away from their chains, from their rational enchainment. And this is when you are able to look at them as new, and then you can do something with them or connect them, like in seriality, in belief, in the theorematic, or in the body. And last, you have the series. The series of time is when you create the symbol, what you call also the symbol of time, because you have to put two images together that are going to activate an empowerment. For example, you have like in, if you take someone like Kubrick, you have an irrational point, the power of the accident that you have seen with Kubrick and with Virgilio. You have something that cannot just be programmed. This is a power, the power of the accident. And this power of the accident is manifested in an irrational point. It breaks always somewhere. Like in Kubrick, the guy, he knows that his girlfriend is cheating on him, and he just breaks and he sends a nuclear bomb to Russia. And this is when you have the two sides, which are the innermost and the outermost, the virtual and the external world, the world of the accident, that create a membrane. When you look at Paris as if it's programmed, the world which is outside becomes like the brain which is inside. This is why it's a brain image. Now, of course, what's interesting in brain images is to show that the membrane always cracks, or the brain, you always have a brain failure or a brain crack, which is the power of the accidental. And this is, of course, a critique of all the management, like Macron and his friends, management strategies, because today politics is not anymore about ideas, at least for many. It is about, it's about management and about programming the world. It's like Google and Facebook. They don't really care anymore about your ideology. On the contrary, the more you speak about your ideas and ideologies on Facebook, the more Facebook is happy, because this is how it's able to not only make money, but to literally run. But what it really cares about is how to program the length of your sentences and how much you can speak and stuff like that. This is what you call program. Okay, now you have seen also memory as a membrane with Alain René, the two brains, the rat and the evolved brain. I will not go through it again. We have seen the fabulation and the trance images. I'm going fast here because we did this literally last time with Walid Rad and the Rouge and fabulation, where, for example, with Walid Rad and Jean Rouge and Rochard, you have a point of impossibility. I think this concerns us all. How can you create art in Lebanon if you are concerned with colonial theories? It's impossible. You cannot do Godard because, you'll be copying. I'm not saying that Godard is a colonial, but you will be doing like, the colonial. But you cannot do also Islamic art because Islam is a form of colonialism from within, if you take Khomeini and company. So what do you do in that sense? Now, this is where Walid Raad thinks that fabulation is a solution, where you go into a delirium. So you're neither reproducing the West nor the East. You are reproducing yourself in this impossible situation. Or you can go in trance, like Russia. You just put all of these ideas in a shaker, as you have seen last time. And this opens on a power of delirium with Walid Raad, Jean Rouge, and many others, and on a power of agitation with Russia. We have only seen Russia. And last, you have seen the stratigraphies. You have also breaks. For example, if you take Marguerite Duras, Desire, you're walking in the street, you see a beautiful, handsome man, and you crack. You forget your husband, you forget your family, and you just crack. This is what you call the power of desire. And the power of desire can only be expressed, again, in this crack. You have, here's the problematic point, the burning point of desire. Marguerite Duras calls it the burning point of desire. And to express that, you break. You have an irrational cut between the images and speech, and this is how you're able to capture the power of desire. We have seen the same with Les Straubes. Les Straubes, they believe that there's a power of resistance, and you have points of resistance, meaning you see something unfair, and the only way to do that is speak above the image, but the image doesn't fit speech. This is what they do most of the time. So you have nice buildings in Paris, and you have to speak that this is part of the blood in Africa. You have to say. And this is when you resist, and you see that the image doesn't fit the discourse, and that the discourse is digging behind the image. And last, you have seen points of creation with Cyberberg, and the power of the irrational. We have seen with Hitler how actually Hitler simply is not irrational enough. I think this is the best critique, as far as I'm concerned, I've heard against Nazism, or let's say Khomeinianism, or all of these irrational structure. Usually the critique is that, they're not rational. It's not rational, it's not thoughtful enough, it's a bit caricatural, and what Cyberberg is saying is no, it's caricatural less, but it's not irrational enough. Someone like Nietzsche is 10,000 times more crazy than Hitler, and Hitler, he's playing crazy, but he's not really crazy. This is the critique of Cyberberg to Hitler. Maybe someone will do the same with Hassan Nasrallah, or with the other fascist formations we have. We have plenty here in the region, which claims in terms of an irrationality. I think in Lebanon, at least, Khomeinianism claims itself of an irrational, with all these Mehdis and white horses flying around. And I think that someone should come and tell them, you know what, you're not irrational enough. You're just playing drunk and irrational and stuff like that. But the real irrationality is on the side of, let's say, Ali, or on the side of the Shiite mystics, and not on your side. This would be when you show the power of the irrational, and you do a critique of information, fascisms, Nazisms, and Khomeinisms, if you feel like it, and the like. Okay, so I hope you saw how it works. Again, to conclude, you need a point of rupture. This is what you call the problematic point. It could be a traumatic event. It could be a color that you don't understand where it fits. It could be the sidewalk, which you don't use as a sidewalk. It could be a word which you don't know its meaning. War, you don't know what is war. It could be an event that you consider is unfair. It could be the encounter with a beautiful person, which is the burning point of desire. It could be the unthinkable, meaning You don't understand why you're always thinking. It could be all of these points which are here in the column. And then you couple virtual, actual, will, power. Will is virtual, I want, and then I do. And you couple them in different ways, past, present, or image and its virtual image, or gesture and its virtual gesture, or sound, image, like the sound is the virtuality of the image and vice versa, like in Dura, so on and so forth. And you have the doubles here. They are here. I read, they are here. Actual image is the virtual for another. This is in the explicit dream. Actual word, virtual movement. So you have them here. And this is the integration. I hope by now it's clear. The integration is this. Of course, the author has a problem. This is for your paper. The author have a problem which is here. He has a problem with the everyday, or he has a problem with established social roles, or he has a problem with conscious projection and planifying my life, or he has a problem with history and meaning, or he has a problem with, if you take it, with preconceptions, with the meaning of words, or you have the problems are here. I hope it's clear. And of course, he would like to show that this is problematic, and show us, for example, that there are issues in the everyday, because you're not just a professor, but you are taken into this role, and so on and so forth. And this is when you bring in your solution. Your solution could be, could be to show that we are stuck in a crystal, or, and then you give it an image type, a crystalline image, blah, blah, blah. And then you show the integration, meaning what is the point which is problematic, and what are the doubles which are allowing this vortex to open up, either to show how the historical word is disturbed, or to show something new. I hope it's clear. Is it clear for everyone, for your papers?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yeah or no? Or maybe. Okay, so we're done now. So that's it for
Thank you, Faris.
Anytime. Thank you. So that's it for the creative
Thank you.
concepts. Anytime. I'll do my little advertisement. So if you wish, there's a cool course on Foucault next semester that is going to be, which completes this course. Meaning all what you have seen in this course, which are the image types, well, we are going to do Foucault to explain to you like the real world that corresponds to these types. I've spoken a little bit about the controlled societies with viruses and burrows, but we'll see in detail, for example, what is a controlled society. The classical image corresponds to the disciplinary societies, which is the modern world, and we'll see in detail what is a modern world politically, how it is organized, and we'll deal with things which are a little bit external to the arts, like industry, and I don't know, thought forms, and the way we treat the mad and stuff like that. So anyway, we are going to do, if you want, the complement of this course, where you will understand the real from where all of this comes. So this is the advertisement, and it's going to be audio-based with QA sessions, which I think is much better than that. Because I understand that you weren't able to follow very well because of the cuts and stuff like that, and because I speak like a machine. So instead of doing this, and I never wanted to do that anyways, we are going to have the course, for those who wish to take it, audio-based, meaning you will have a course which was given in class with normal people, not with virtual characters, and with a continuous voice, without cuts, and hopefully with a more humane kind of voice, because I was interacting with people. And you will have hence the course, you listen to it, and then we come to the course and we talk about it and we discuss it and I answer your questions. which I believe is much better. So this is the next course if you wish to take it. It's going to be on Foucault.
We don't choose our classes, Faris. They choose them for us.
It's even better. So it's perfect. Okay, so you are forced next course. Okay, I'm very happy to know that it's like a dictatorship. This way I can be sure that I'm going to teach that course because I like the
you're
other
a machine.
course. Because I'm a machine, yeah. This way I can really like have the full program, and I think they really shed light on each other. Okay, so if you have questions for your papers, send me an email or call me, and I will be able to answer your questions. Okay. So do you have any more questions? Yeah, yeah. And who is speaking? I'll get to you in 1 second. Yes.
Me and Abbad spoke at the same time, I think. So if you want, Abbad, go ahead.
Okay, Abbad, what's your
No,
question?
I didn't. غلط كبست على الميكروفون. Go ahead.
Okay. So Anna, what's your question? Anna?
Are you going to give this course next year?
The concepts? The administration decide, you know, it's under the same dictatorship. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give it. If they tell me you have to give it, I give it. That's it. But in principle,
Okay.
yeah, if there are enough students, I will give it. Okay.
Okay, just making sure what my options are.
Yeah, but next semester we have Foucault, and the next year maybe I'll give it, yeah, hopefully in person.
Faris, next semester I'm not here. Anna and Leticia and I are going to Sergi for an exchange semester, so we will skip your course.
Okay, so anyway, so
وأنا بكون خرجت.
huh? Yeah. So let's see that next semester you have Foucault, and next year usually I give the first semester this one, and the next semester Foucault. In principle.
Okay.
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 So
thank you.
Thank you all for coming and being patient and trying with me. And please give me your papers by the 10th of January. I will not accept later. 10th of January, okay? It's 10th of January,
Okay.
right? The 5th gives the grades. Okay. So see you soon, ciao.
Faris, can I ask
Yeah.
you a last question?
Yeah.
If I finish them before that date, can I send them to you so you have an overview and tell me if I have to fix anything?
I usually don't pre-correct, but we can discuss that on email. I don't pre-correct because the whole idea is that you submit a paper, but you can send an email to ask me if you are picking the right author, if you are, and we can explain and discuss if you are doing the right thing, but I can't pre-correct. Is it clear?
Okay, thanks.
So you can all call me as many times as you want to tell me if your author from the time image is the right one and how you should treat it, etc. And you can call me to ask me how you should deal with your own problem. Is this the problem or not? I can explain that, but I can't recorrect your copy. After I explain, you have to write your copies on your own. Okay?
Okay, and for the first one, if we send it to you again, will you recorrect it before the others or at the same time?
Yes, if you send it before, I correct it before the other, and I send you your grade. I advise those of you who got a very low grade to rewrite the same paper by integrating the remarks. At least you'll get a higher grade.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay. Beside maybe one student who picked the wrong author, but all of you can write to me, and I can deal with them. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Faris. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Ciao. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
I just want to say it